The parathyroid hormones are nestled on the posterior lateral side of the thyroid glands. So if you look to the posterior and lateral, you'll see these 4 little dots, sometimes upwards of 8 little dots, that comprise the parathyroid glands. Now these parathyroid glands contain oxyphil cells. It'd be great if we actually knew what they did, but they're not 100% sure of really what the oxyphil cells are doing. So we're going to focus instead on the chief cells. The chief cells are the ones that produce the parathyroid hormone. Parathyroid hormone, or known as parathormone, is going to be the main hormone of calcium homeostasis. Now I'm saying it's the most important because there is a second hormone, remember calcitonin, that also deals with calcium homeostasis. But parathyroid hormone is a little more important because of how it works and how many different systems it works with. Because not just working with the bones, we're also with the urinary system, the kidneys, we're dealing with the intestines of the digestive system. So a few more parts and pieces to really make sure we can get that calcium into our system and maintain a high enough level of homeostasis. Because if calcium levels get too low in the blood, there can be several different problems. So here you're seeing the posterior view of the thyroid and then therefore the parathyroid glands. This one has 4 little dots showing. Remember, they're on the posterior or posterior lateral aspect of the thyroid gland. So these are the parathyroid glands. For the histology, this part that I just circled is the parathyroid gland. Now, if you notice that parathyroid gland just has a whole lot of dots, there's nothing really super distinct compared to some things we've been looking at previously. So anytime I put the parathyroid gland up like this, I'll make sure to always have it next to the thyroid gland. So that way you can see them side by side, knowing, hey, that's thyroid, that's very distinct. Right next to it, that has to be parathyroid. So looking at the parathyroid histology is this aspect right here, with all little cells tightly packed together. So that is your parathyroid histology. So what does the parathyroid hormone do? Well, first off, osteoclast stimulation. Hopefully you remember back, osteoclasts are the cells in the bone matrix that will break down the bony matrix. Now, if you break down the bone matrix, you're releasing calcium into the bloodstream. So that's one function. Second function here, helps with reabsorption of calcium from the kidneys. So now we can get calcium out of the bones by breaking down the bony matrix. The second one is helping to retain more calcium by making sure the kidneys reabsorb the calcium, not allowing the calcium ions to be excreted with the rest of the urine. Third function, activation of vitamin D. Now, vitamin D in this case is going to help with the absorption of calcium out of the intestines, because vitamin D and calcium go hand in hand. If you don't have enough vitamin D, your calcium absorption out of the intestines isn't very efficient. So having an adequate amount of vitamin D, because of the parathyroid hormone, can help with calcium absorption from the intestines. So really, we're looking at 3 different main functional areas here. So look at it one more time. Focusing on the parathyroid glands. Remember the little tiny pieces that are on the posterior or posterior lateral of the thyroid. So those parathyroid glands can monitor and say, hey, the blood calcium levels, it's too low. So let's try to increase our blood calcium by doing these 3 steps. First off, activate in the bones, which means you're activating the osteoclast to help break down the bony matrix and release calcium into the blood. Step 2, in the kidneys, stimulate the kidneys to increase reabsorption of calcium, which means there's more calcium going back into the blood again. Step 3, you're activating vitamin D. Vitamin D aids in calcium absorption from the intestines. Absorb more calcium, the calcium from the intestines goes right into the blood. All three of these are going to increase the blood levels of calcium. So if you notice, every one of them is going right back into the blood, therefore increasing blood calcium levels. Now, this will keep increasing blood calcium levels until homeostasis is maintained. Once you have an appropriate level, hey, parathyroid hormone will cut back. You don't need to increase your blood calcium levels. If your blood calcium levels get too high by chance, so above the homeostatic level, that's not parathyroid hormone. Now calcitonin will kick in to try and lower the blood calcium levels back down to their homeostatic level. So parathyroid hormone is antagonistic to calcitonin. They do the exact opposites. Calcitonin lowers blood calcium. This one, parathyroid hormone, increases blood calcium levels. Together, they help you maintain your blood levels of calcium. So the parathyroid hormone, the more important of the two hormones in regulating your calcium levels of your blood.